I'm still half post Halloween depression. My favorite time of the year has come and gone. Great. I have nothing left to live for. Ah. Well, still gotta keep putting out videos. So since Thor Ragnarok is coming out this weekend, thought I might as well put the other two Thor movies up against each other. Now, to give you a bit of a background, neither of the Thor movies, Thor and Thor the Dark World, were particularly memorable. I mean, they're not bad movies. I mean, they have their fans as they deserve, and there's good stuff in them and a couple of funny stuff, but critically, they've never really been anything to remember, even though commercially they did pretty well. But we still need to decide which one of the two is the better so we can determine which one is the second best Thor film. I mean, come on, we all know Thor Ragnarok's going to be the best Thor film. So, 5 rounds. Let's do this. Round 1, story. The first Thor movie is basically what you would expect. Thor pisses off his dad Odin, and Thor now has to learn humility and how to be humble, and his hammer has the spell of only those worthy can wield it, so now he has to prove he's worthy. And of course, Loki's trying to take over Asgard while that's happening, and Thor's interacting with human people on Earth, or as they call it, Midgard. In Thor the Dark World, the story is Thor, after the events of the first Avengers movie, realizes that his, I guess, human girlfriend, Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman, has the ether or reality stone a part of her, and now he has to make sure that the Dark Elves don't use the reality stone to take over the universe. Not really quite sure what their plan is, but probably something we've seen before. Of course, both these movies have stories that aren't particularly new or original, but they're still entertaining in their own rights. Now, as far as which one is the best, well, with the first Thor film, like I said, it was all things considered, it was good. But I kept comparing it to the first Iron Man film and kept thinking how much better the Iron Man film did this story better than Thor did. As with Thor: The Dark World, again, I wasn't particularly impressed, but I really wasn't comparing it to any other Marvel film at that time. So, with that being said, if there really isn't a film I can compare Thor: Dark World to as opposed to Thor, I'm going to give this round to Thor: The Dark World. Alright, let's move on to round 2. Cast. The cast of both these movies are very similar. Chris Hemsworth is Thor, Tom Hiddleston is Loki, Natalie Portman is Jane Foster. I forgot who played Odin, but Odin's in here as well as Odin's mother. The Ladies 3, the Warriors 3, which includes Lady Sif. And you also got Jane Foster's scientific colleague slash friends. Now, Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston both make both of these movies work with their performance and their interacting with each other. They're easily the best parts of both of these Thor movies. And all the other characters have good stuff to give as well. However, with Thor: The Dark World, you can tell some of them are being pushed off to the side. I mean, at the beginning of The Dark World, you got the Warriors 3 and a little bit of a fight sequence, but they really don't come up again as much in the story. Now, that doesn't mean they don't come up at all, but you kind of forget about them a little bit as you focus on Thor and Jane Foster in the Battle of the Dark Elves. With the first Thor movie, there seems much more of a balance between all the characters, including Jane Foster, her human colleagues, Agent Phil Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D., even Hawkeye has his first appearance in this movie. I just feel that there is more of a balance between all the different characters in the first Thor movie. And with that being said, this round goes to Thor. Alright, let's move on to round 3, action and effects. Well, we all know it's CG. It doesn't show that it's CG. Like, it's well done. It's well made. I mean, both of these movies show the great big world of Asgard, and the action sequences are enjoyable to watch. Now, the first Thor movie, there really isn't a lot of action in it. There's a couple, but it's really more about Thor learning how to become more humble and to learn humility. But Thor: The Dark World is very much action, more action movie, with him trying to battle the Dark Elves and save all the worlds. Now, I'm not usually the kind of guy who says that films that have more action and special effects automatically make it better, but it sort of applies to these movies. I mean, the first Thor movie did show Asgard, had all these great effects, and the action, while minimal, was fun. But I just felt like they did it a little bit better in Thor: The Dark World, so I'm going to give it to the sequel. Now, let's move on to what's become a staple of all of these Marvel movies: comedy. Now, there's a running joke with the Marvel movies that there's a little too much humor in them, even taking away from the emotional impact certain scenes are supposed to have. I mean, if you look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, there was this sort of emotional moment that was supposed to happen, but then Kurt Russell turned into David Hasselhoff as part of a joke in a movie. It just really took it out. Now, surprisingly, in both of these Thor movies, the humor is, for lack of a better term, minimal. I mean, you got your jokes, don't get me wrong. But really, in the grand scheme of the movies, they really aren't as many jokes as you would expect. Especially considering the fact that these are the same movies that made the Iron Man films, Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a bit of a refreshing change of pace, but still sort of surprising. Now, like I said, there are some funny moments in both these movies, and I think that's part of the reason I still pretty like them, because when they do the humor, it usually lands pretty well. However, I do find myself quoting more from the Thor movie, especially when it comes to comedy, more than Thor: The Dark World. So with that being said, this round goes to the first Thor movie. 2-2 tie. Let's bring it back to the fifth and final round. That would be atmosphere. Now, like I said, neither of these movies are particularly memorable, but that doesn't mean they don't have atmosphere to it. Both of these movies show the great big world of Asgard, sort of like the little bit of like a cosmic feel to it a little bit, but not too much. And so they do sort of play with the idea that it's not really magic, it's science and all this other kind of stuff. It's a little confusing. It's very much comic book films, even though it's about gods. Now, with that being said, we still gotta determine which one did it just a little bit better. Well, with Thor: The Dark World, it's, like I said, probably a little bit more repetitive because it's stuff we've seen before, not particularly with the MCU movies, but with just big action films in general. With the Thor movie, yeah, it's a fish out of water story, but they do it a little bit differently. Instead of Thor being upset about all the changes that are in Midgard, he's just like, okay, I understand, I'll do better. He actually does evolve a little bit, and it does actually help create more of like a connection with Thor, actually, which does help with the atmosphere. And the atmosphere of the first Thor film is still pretty good considering the fact that you have to balance both Asgard and Earth pretty equal amounts. Now, I know Earth, of course, is also a big part in Thor: The Dark World, but there's more of a balance, more of like a focus in the first Thor movie. So, I'm going to have to give it to that. So, out of Thor and Thor: The Dark World, I'm going to give it to Thor, the first movie. Now, like I said, we all know Thor Ragnarok is the best Thor movie, even though I have not seen it yet. Because, come on, it's Thor and Hulk and Loki and Valkyrie going up against the Goddess of Death and Ragnarok with humor and other stuff. Are we sure this movie is different that we claimed it is? Well, either way, this weekend I'm going to see Thor Ragnarok. So hopefully it will be as fun as people say it is. Now, that's the end of this movie face off. Dr. Cinema. Like, comment, subscribe, share. I hope you're not dealing with the passing of Halloween as much as I am. Really want Halloween to stay, but I gotta move on. So, see you guys next time.